quick note for you all. But we will be taking a break in the month of July. So don't expect any new content to start until Season 3 in August. Thanks so much, guys. Enjoy this episode. Let's get to it.
Hello there, social media.
What up?
I
Hi.
am not the typical Pastor TJ.
Yeah, that's
I'm
weird.
not a particular Pastor TJ either, or Joe.
Well,
Although
yes.
I am a Joe.
Anyway, we'll get into that more later.
Well, should we start the episode?
Yes,
Maybe
we should.
we'll get maybe
Hit that button.
the
We'll get to introductions later.
we'll understand why it's us three and not
wonder
the other two.
How different do our voices sound? Like, is it noticeable or
I don't think so.
Probably.
you don't think
My
so?
voice still cracks. So.
Okay.
No,
Well,
I think he means
yeah.
from TJ and Joe.
Yeah, from TJ and Joe. Like,
oh, I don't know.
are they able to?
Significantly
Are
different.
eagle-eared listeners able to tell that we're
All
different?
right, let's get started.
I suspect. The laughs are all different too. So
Okay. Hello, Pastor.
Eustace, great to see you. What was it you wanted to meet me about?
Well, for some time now, I've kind of been feeling like maybe God could be calling me into ministry, and I was hoping to seek some wisdom from some of my mentors, and so I thought it would be helpful for me to meet up with you and maybe see if you could help me with that.
Oh, that is so awesome. I'm so happy to hear that. And I know just the way to help you with that.
Good.
How would you like to move out of the area and spend tens of thousands of dollars?
Why? Why would I do that?
Well, to be trained for the ministry, of course.
It doesn't seem. Couldn't I just be trained here? I was hoping that maybe I could be a blessing to this church. I mean, this is the church I was saved in, or at least maybe I could get a little taste before I decide to commit like thousands of dollars and move away.
Now, Eustace, why would you do something like that? Don't you want to learn from the best theological minds possible? I can't give you that. All I can offer you is years of pastoral experience and insight. Not to mention mentoring you through the whole process. That's nothing compared to learning about intinction and superlapsarianism. I can barely pronounce those words, let alone explain them.
Supra what now?
pastoral internships on this episode of Rural Pastors Talk.
Thank you for joining us for another edition of Rural Pastors Talk, a podcast highlighting the advancement of Christ's kingdom in rural places, just like the town you live in. The rural church is not the baby pool we splash around in before moving on to bigger opportunities. It is not the place we're confined to until we can take off those training wheels. And it is not God's penalty box as a punishment for breaking the rules. No, Jesus died for his people, and as long as Christ's people live in rural places, a vibrant, healthy, multiplying presence of his church will be there too. Am I supposed to keep talking now?
No, you'll get the pacing later.
Well, eventually.
Hello there, Internet. My name is not TJ. Well, technically it is. We'll get to that later. I am Trevor Rout, pastoral intern of counseling and discipleship here at Wellsboro Bible Church.
Hello, my name is Joe, but everyone calls me Zeke Zimmerman. I am a pastoral intern of children and youth here at Wellsboro Bible Church.
What's going on, guys? Joshua McLaren, pastoral assistant with no other fancy title at Wellsboro Bible Church.
Yes, so I will say that the greatest aha moment in my life, next to the Lord opening my blind eyes to salvation, was realizing that if we ever did an intern episode of Rural Pastors Talk, that it would still be Rural Pastors Talk with TJ and Joe, because technically I am a TJ, and technically your name is Joe, in fact.
That is true. That is
Amazing.
true.
Amazing.
Anyway, on this episode of Rural Pastors Talk, the best things to do in Wellsboro, an overview of Wellsboro Bible Church's internship program, why internships are important, and a review from Zeke to help you stay dry, and a quote from Dave Harvey to keep you from being starvy.
I'm so glad you used it.
There we go.
That's
He's
awesome.
training us well.
All right, Zeke, so let's start with you. So we moved to Wellsboro about the same time, about 8 months ago.
That is true. Yep.
And so now that we've been here for that period of time and we've gotten used to the area, what are some of your favorite things about Wellsboro?
There are a lot of things. The first thing I'm going to go with, I think you know well, every now and then we'd carpool when we were driving to work, and sometimes we'd get out late, and when you come back, you just open up that car door and you step outside and boom, beautiful night sky. And I can't tell you how often just what came out of my mouth was, wow, the stars are so beautiful.
When we lived together for our first month, there was literally every time he got out of the car if it was nighttime. like without
Beautiful
without
fall
question.
skies.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And so just it's an absolutely gorgeous area when the sun is down and it's dark and cold and starry out, but also like when just watching a sunset, watching a sunrise, it's just absolutely beautiful up here in Wellsboro. In addition to that, I gotta say I love the ice cream. The Main Street Creamery is so good.
Shout out to our neighbors.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
The owners
that
live
is
right
true.
next to the
Yeah,
church
owners
building.
live right
Listeners.
next to the building.
Yes.
Oh, well
Yes.
done, well done. How about you, Trevor? What is your favorite thing?
That's a good question. I really like downtown Wellsboro, and I like that you have there's a lot of things to do downtown, especially for a small town. Like I grew up in Canton, Pennsylvania, the metropolis of Canton, Pennsylvania, and there's not much to do downtown. But I really like all the restaurants that are downtown and things like that. I feel like there's a lot to do for a small town, definitely. So, yep.
Nice. Hey, Josh, what's your favorite thing?
That is a very good question. I've been here longer than 8 months.
Mm-hmm.
I love the two things you guys mentioned. Probably a combination of both, maybe. I love the ability we have to be so rural to like drive 3 minutes and you're like out in the middle of nowhere. I also love the small town vibes with the neat, cute shops and the community feel. One thing I appreciate about Wellsboro that's different from Troy, the community I grew up in, which is also Canton's rival, is there seems to be, and Troy people, if I'm wrong about this, you can let me know. But from my perspective, and maybe that's changing, it seems like there's more of a community aspect in Wellsboro than there was in Troy. Now, granted, I did not live in town like I do now, so that might be a little different too. So, but I like the town. I like living here. It's a blessing.
Yes. And so,
Speaking of which, there's something that happens here in Wellsboro that you guys are taking part of that you're going to talk about today.
yes, in Wellsboro,
Trying to segue, sorry.
at a specific church known as Wellsboro Bible Church, there is an internship program that they offer. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today.
That segue. I got it now. There we go. Yeah, the internship program. Yeah, who better to do that than the interns?
Yeah. So maybe Zeke, could you explain a little bit of the purpose of the internship that we've been doing for 8 or so months?
Yeah, so what often happens to, I think, a lot of young guys who get saved or have been raised in the church in some way and gotten to know Christ, been saved by the grace of Christ, and you start to eventually wonder, hey, I wonder, what am I supposed to do with my life? You go through a whole bunch of those different thoughts, and what sometimes comes to the forefront is, I wonder if I should go into the ministry full time. So when you have all those questions, there's lots of different tracks, things that you can do. It's best to go and seek a lot of wisdom from people in your church. And I guess one of the huge points of the internship is that it's helping young men discern if they are called to pastoral ministry in the future. So what does that look like? What does that entail, Trevor?
Yeah, so the 3 parts of our internship that we've been doing have dealt with character, conviction, and competency. And from what I understand, Josh, this was the first time that they really did all 3 of those, because before it was a shorter internship and it was mostly character and conviction. Is that true?
Yep.
We're the guinea pigs of this?
Yeah, well, there was small things with competency. Like when you guys were reading, there were some things like jumping in here and there when it came to volunteer opportunities. But to have the competency that you guys have, the focus of you are, Zeke working in particular with Pastor Ben in the children and youth, and Trevor, you're leading the discipleship class. That is definitely even more specific than what I had when I did kind of my second half of the internship. So
yeah, and so the character part is obviously like growing in holiness and growing in spiritual disciplines, things like that. And then growing in conviction means a lot of time staring at white pages with black letters on them. So did we ever figure out how many pages it is that we have to read for the internship?
Dude, that would be a great statistic. I think actually Capitol Hill has that listed.
As one of their statistics.
Yeah, you guys keep
well,
talking.
we're not
I'm gonna
Capitol Hill, but
I'm very curious. That'd be a fascinating statistic to look
yeah,
at.
so we read a ton of books on, a lot of them were on the local church specifically, some of them in more concentrated areas, such as we had a few on biblical counseling. We had Sinclair Ferguson's The Christian Life, which is just kind of an overview, like a systematic view.
Excellent work if you have not read it.
Yes. Yeah. And so this was helpful for me because before I came here, I worked for a parachurch ministry. And so I learned some theology things, but it was more like broader primary issues. And this kind of helped me to hone in more on specifically what's my view on baptism? What does that mean? And what is my view on the Lord's Supper? And what is church membership? I didn't know anything about church membership before coming here. Mm-hmm. And so that was like super helpful for me to figure out some of those more specifics.
Yeah, it's definitely extremely beneficial, especially as a young guy going in, hearing lots of different viewpoints on things like church polity or doctrinal differences. Just being able to have a really firming up of a conviction of what the scriptures truly say. And as much as we're reading all these books by Sinclair Ferguson, Mark Dever, it's always refreshing to go back to the scriptures as you're opening up those pages and they make an argument and they're drawing it from some passage. It's then to flip open the scriptures, flip open your Bible and just read it and see it there for yourself. Like, it was an incredible thing to, I think one of the biggest things, it was regarding the topic of church discipline, and who does that land on? And one of the arguments that was being made went right to Galatians 1, sort of verses, chapter 1, verse 6 through 9, and how there's this church in Galatia that is sort of falling for some false teaching. And Paul doesn't blame, he doesn't go after the elders or the deacons or the leaders of the church. He's addressing the Galatians as a whole, as a group. And so it was like, wow, that's actually a really powerful argument for when you're thinking about how church discipline plays a part. It's members of the congregation who are to informally do that. So that was really pretty powerful and encouraging.
Yeah, and both of us learned during our time here, actually, as we were reading more and more about baptism, we were like, we both came to the conclusion that we needed to be baptized because we hadn't been baptized in a biblical way before. And so, yes, thank you, Josh. Not everyone who does the internship does that, by the way. That's not a requirement of the internship.
I was not baptized when I came here.
No, because you were before that.
Yes.
Come to Wellsboro, get baptized.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, man.
So, yeah. And so then the third part of the internship would be the competency part, and this is more of the practical experience. So some examples of this.
Well, hey, before you guys move on, is there one particular resource in your theological training, either book or even not, maybe a conversation you guys had, other than what you just shared, that you would recommend to our listeners that you found very helpful?
Because I am the intern of biblical counseling and discipleship, Instruments in the Redeemer's Hands is it's amazing. It is Paul David Tripp giving just an awesome overview of what biblical counseling should look like, and also giving the challenge to just members of the church and saying, hey, we can't just rely on quote unquote professional ministers to do this work. Like, we need members of the local church to be doing this. It's not something that's for an elite group.
Yeah. Wow. What's coming to mind right now is probably Charles Bridges, The Christian Ministry. Wow. It was just incredible to watch, to read through this book that was written way back 1850s, 1840s. I don't remember the exact date. But see how practical and how applicable it still was to modern day. Like, this is what the church should be doing. And it was amazing how he could give a spot-on diagnosis. There we go. That's the word. Thanks, boss.
Yep.
How he could just give that diagnosis of, this is what happens when a church follows the word. This is what happens when a church does not follow the word in the specific area. And it was just incredible to see that throughout the change in time, how that has been still something that's so applicable. So.
Yeah.
The one book I didn't finish during my internship, and Zeke brings it up. Now I got to finish it.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, I might recommend that one once I finish it. I'm still working through that. It's a trip.
Yeah.
But
good recommendation.
A good trip. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so again, the third part would be the practical experience part, competency, if you want to stick with the alliteration. And so this is where our specific concentrations kind of came in, but also even before that, the fact that we're sitting in on every staff meeting and 99% of all elders meetings. It's an opportunity that you don't get unless you become an elder to sit in on an elders meeting. And so that has been such a great opportunity to see how biblical eldership can work, especially with a plurality of elders.
Oh, yeah. That's been an incredible thing to be able to sit in there and witness the elders in action, the elders and staff during staff meeting when you're watching what goes on behind a church. It's one thing when you're somebody who's just attending the church. You don't necessarily see the other side of it. And then you show up in meetings and it's all of a sudden, oh, this is how this works. This is why. This is the things that it takes to get the work done, the trellis, so to speak.
Yeah, the bulletins don't fall from the sky like manna from heaven. Like they need to be made by someone.
If only they did.
Yeah. So just the small things like that you don't realize go into helping a church to function.
Yeah.
Zeke, one thing you've mentioned to me oftentimes that struck you when you first came here was a particular kind of elder meeting. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I think the particular kind you're looking for is a plurality of elders.
No. Sorry. Elder meeting.
How they switch
I get what
type
you're
of
trying to
meeting
get.
it is every other meeting.
Yes.
And there's one you said that was like very impactful when you first came.
So oh my goodness, it was so impactful. We go through the member list and we pray, and just the bulk of that meeting is just prayer and care for the congregation. And it's not just like kind of a generic, here's our members. I haven't reached out to them. I don't know what's going on. Each elder is charged. They get an opportunity to go and call, to meet, to spend some time getting to know the flock. And then they spend time asking, hey, how can we pray? And then we come together and we just all pray for them. It was absolutely incredible. The first time that I witnessed it, it was like one of the first weeks we were here, and it was just like, so this is what an elder does. This is incredible. It's not just about the different colored carpet or putting in a bathroom in the new children's wing stuff. It's not just stuff like that. It's a lot of deep spiritual care for the growth of the flock. It's like, wow, that hit hard.
Yeah, and I think for me, similarly, in one of the first elder meetings that I was able to be in, which was the not member focus. What's the other one called?
We call it issue focus. Not as if there is an issue, but like focus thing we're talking about.
Yeah.
They're talking about.
And there was one of the elders brought up an idea to do something, and then the other ones kind of gave their reasons why to not do that. And the first one was kind of like, okay, I'll submit to you guys kind of thing. And it was like, I've never actually seen that happen before. That's like super cool, especially in the culture we live in. You know, the way leadership works, it just doesn't, it's not normal. So that was very impactful for me, definitely. And I've seen it since then too. That's not the only time I've seen that happen. So
continued humility.
Yeah.
It's so important. So important. Josh, what was something that impacted you the most when it came to witnessing those elders meetings for the first time?
Yeah. Probably the reason I asked you to bring it up, Zeke, was probably similar to you in that I remember coming and seeing the men just pray. And prayer is a fight for me often. Like some guys, I think, by God's grace, are able to just sit and pray for extended periods of time, and I'm very thankful for them, but I can't do that. So to see a group of men disciplined to do that regularly was really helpful. And actually, we came in and were voted in as members in the same member meeting that Clint was affirmed as an elder. So that was cool to see Clint just enter in after his year-long elder internship to then participate in being an elder. That was really cool to see. And now I've seen, two since then. Both Jason and Chuck as other lay guys. So that was a blessing to see the process and how the elders had identified a man in the congregation who, excuse me, there's the voice crack, I told you, who identified someone who desired the office of overseer and then became one and is still one, and it's really cool. So. It's good.
Yeah, and even seeing the plurality of elders and the fact that like different ages, different backgrounds, things like that. It's been really cool to see how that works.
Yeah, it has been. So, Trevor, what has been the overall experience? What have been some things that have really stuck out to you about
Yes,
this?
I would love to answer that question, but I think that you were going to answer that one first. Didn't we decide that?
I guess. I guess I just asked myself a question. I set myself up there.
Good job.
Whoops.
Nice softball toss.
Yeah. Wow. So I'd shared a little bit just about the experience of witnessing what an elder does and praying for the congregation. That was an incredible thing. I think another really useful thing, it ties into a lot of the reading. It ties into talking about that second C, the conviction of the time that this internship has given me to read, to pray, and to consider why does a church do what it does? Like, why are you speaking, or why are you selecting specific songs for worship? Why do you care about that? Why don't you just kind of, whatever, if it's like some popular Christian song that everyone's singing, just go with it without doing any research or looking into the origins of where that song is coming from and the other things that are tied directly to it. Why is that not a good idea? It's things like, what does your flow of a Sunday morning look like? Should you even meet on a Sunday morning? That type of question. Do you have a Sunday school? Do you have how is the church organization? How's that working? Just a lot of those questions. Even then the baptism question, your pedo baptism, your credo baptism. What are you doing with the babies? All these different questions. It's good to sit down and think about it. You're dunking, you're sprinkling, Yeah.
Yeah, it's been refreshing to be in a church that is very intentional about everything that they do, and they have their biblical reasons for everything that they're doing. And that's been really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess like another thing that really struck me was the importance of the local church. I too came from a few parachurch organizations, from working a long time at a summer camp, and then when I was going to college, I was really invested in a campus group, campus Christian group,
Campus ministry.
Disciple Makers Christian Fellowship. Shout out to any of those wonderful people. Oh yeah, Josh has the mug. Good timing,
That
boss.
was a gift from the lower classmen when I was a senior, and I use it to this day, guys. Now you see it. This has been my coffee cup in my office since I started here. So.
Yeah.
Continue.
But yeah, just coming from a lot of those different backgrounds, they were excellent and they were good, and I grew a lot in the faith and understanding how to read the scriptures. And I want to be delicate here in what I say, because parachurch organizations are very useful. But they aren't the same as the church. And just coming here and being able to pray and read through a lot of these works, that was a lot of the arguments that they were making. It was how arrogant of me to read through many of those letters, through Galatians, through Ephesians, and just to be focused on myself and my walk with Christ, as opposed to, wait, this is written to the Ephesians, plural, the saints who are at Ephesus, to the church. This is written to a corporate group, and understanding, growing in what is meant by the church. I was just absolutely incredible, and to be convicted in that, and to continue to grow and have a genuine love for the church. Mm-hmm. So now I'll ask you, Trevor.
Yes. Yeah, and I would definitely agree with that last point that at one point I think it was about halfway through the internship, we were asked to write a paper on what we had learned so far, and my thesis statement was the eternal importance of the local church. And I still stand by that. I think that has been the central theme of the internship, that the local church should be the center of, the training of people for ministry, for the growth of believers and things like that. And I think that's been awesome. And also for me specifically is growing in holiness and a desire to be more holy. And so not that I didn't care about it at all before, but I think that it has shaped me to be more intentional about my holiness and growing in that. And part of that is realizing that like I am on some level a representative of the church, especially in public life. And so a couple of weeks ago, I went to a local restaurant in town, and some random guy who I didn't know at all was like, "Hey, are you guys ready for tomorrow?" And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Who are you? Why are you talking to me? And then he said something about, seeing TJ post on social media or something. And I realized he was talking about church. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, this person knows who I am, and he knows that I work at the church. Like, very glad that I wasn't being an idiot at that point. But yeah, so just realizing that and like, my character matters for the sake of the church. And I wouldn't want to do something that would make the church look bad. And obviously growing in that also and seeing that I wouldn't want to do something that would make Christ look bad or the body of believers as a whole to look bad. And so that's been a specific area of mine, definitely, that I've grown in during this internship. And also biblical counseling, because I knew almost nothing about that before doing the internship. And it's funny because, when we were going through our concentrations after the first half of our internship, TJ met with Zeke and knew immediately, like, hey, by the way, you're doing kids and men. Like, and it's not like just TJ. It's like everyone knew. No one had to think about it for more than 2 seconds that this is what Zeke's going to do. It was very obvious. But for me, I remember sitting in his office, and he was like, what do you think your concentration should be? And I said, I have no idea. And he said, me neither. So we had to take a little more time to think about that and process that. And I think that has been going very well, and definitely seeing the benefits of that training and really seeing the sufficiency of the Word of God to help people. And also seeing that there aren't any biblical counselors in the area. The closest one is over an hour away, I think. And so just seeing that as a need for the area, and how the church can help to fill that need, and how I can. And so part of that is training people in biblical counseling. That's a large part of what I'm doing for the second half of my internship, is leading a class in that. So that's been super cool. So
one thing to affirm, even Trevor, what you said about being in the public's eye, like that is a qualification for overseer, 1 Timothy 3:7. Moreover, he must be well thought of by outsiders. So it's interesting, even something like that. And I did too. Like, I'll never forget when I came here and I asked, TJ and I were talking, and I just said, is there anything like in my life or in my ministry that you would say I just need to change? And it was interesting because he said one thing, and it was a word I used that had carried over from college. And in college, you can, it's college kids, you're ministering to your peers. It was a word that I used that was just, I don't know, it was like a silly word, but I used it often in speech. And he's like, you don't want people to look down upon you for your youth, and you don't want to be seen as, not saying we can't have fun and we can't, enjoy laughter and joy and comedy, because the Lord's created us to be able to do those things, but having a desire to be well thought of, and not being, like you said, an idiot in public and things like that. So
yeah, and even like making the transition for me specifically of working with the parachurch ministry I worked with was mostly college students. And so that's like a huge change of going from working with college students to the local church. Even thinking about like the way that I dress and things like that, like after hearing, I think it was a couple weeks ago, they were talking about on the podcast what they wear when they're preaching.
No ripped jeans.
Yeah, and that made me like, like when I'm teaching this class, especially the fact that I am the youngest one in the room every time for this class that I'm teaching, and realizing like I should probably be more intentional about what I'm wearing, so that to help with that whole thing. And so
now, speaking of wardrobe, Trevor, you intentionally wore something today. What was your reasoning?
I have been lovingly, maybe sometimes lovingly, called the resident hipster of Wellsboro Bible Church. And I remember a couple weeks ago, TJ told me, Trevor, I'm really glad that you came, because people stop complaining about what I wear now. He didn't say it exactly like that.
So for the podcast, the Intern Insurgency podcast episode, you said
I said I'm going to wear my most hipster outfit that I can. Nice. And so
bravo.
That's what I went with. This is what I went with.
Well done.
This jacket, or this...
What you got where?
This is... I got it overseas, when I was overseas last year.
Is that a cardigan? What do you call it?
I would call it a flannel, probably.
A flannel, okay.
Yeah. So... And skinny jeans, of course.
You got nice Goodwill shoes.
Yes. And also... Never mind.
And obviously your 15, 17 hat.
Yeah, my 15s, which I think Probably 4 out of 7 days of the week I wear it. So.
It's a good conversation starter. Like
It is.
It's led to a lot of cool things.
Yeah, lots of people ask me what it means, and I keep saying, and I need to think about this more intentionally, of somehow making that into a gospel presentation for people that aren't believers. I think that could be really cool, but I haven't done that yet.
We're chasing a rabbit right now.
So guys, why should churches pursue interns?
I think it's an excellent opportunity for growth, both for the congregation as well as the individual. There's a lot of we're young. We do a lot of we have a young zeal about us oftentimes that can be very encouraging to if your congregation has somewhat older members. I found that to be the case. There have been a few times I've been with some other friends, some younger friends, out in a restaurant, and we do something as simple as we pray before we eat. And there's an older couple, older generation comes by, and they just let us know, hey, we are so thankful, we're so encouraged. Excuse me, we're so encouraged that there are young people still following the Lord. And it's not necessarily they know any of doctrinal differences or anything like that, but just to be able to pray in public, it can be such an encouragement for older congregations. For us on the young side, it's a sweet deal. It's a real sweet deal. We're growing. We're constantly asking the question, am I called? And not just arrogantly answering yes within ourselves and then plowing ahead. There's a lot of accountability and there's a lot of feedback. We're submitting ourselves to the elders, and not just the elders, but the other members of the church who we're working with. Me and Kidsmen, I'm doing a lot of stuff with children and families, and so there's the constant accountability and feedback of, hey, I had this interaction with a child. I was able to share a gospel. They talked with me. They opened up and shared some deep stuff. What do I do? Or how do I handle that? I get to go and speak with them and listen to the parents and just continue to pray for them as they also pray and seek to shepherd their child. So yeah, there's a lot of benefits for the congregation as well as us trying to seek out not affirmation. What's the word I'm looking for? Confirmation. Seeing if there is confirmation, if this is an area.
To the internal call.
Yes.
The external confirmation to the internal call.
Yes. Well put, boss.
Yeah.
So Trevor, how about you?
Yeah, so a fun fact about all three of us is none of us went to Bible college. All of us graduated from a secular university.
Bloomsburg's up 2-1, Trevor.
You're
outnumbered here.
Yes, I know. But I think most people in the church think that I graduated from Bloomsburg.
They totally do. It's so funny.
But I bring that up because I went to a tech school after high school. I graduated with an engineering technology degree, and I'm very proud of that. And what I loved about tech school was you weren't sitting in a classroom all day. Like you were actually my specific degree was more on the manufacturing side. And so I was out actually running machines. Like I was learning about it in classroom. And then for every hour we had in the class, we had 3 hours in the lab. And so most of the training was hands-on training, actually doing things that will help you in your job when you graduate. And that's what I love about the internship is that I'm not just sitting in a classroom and learning things, as much as I would love doing that because I love learning theology. Like I'm very interested in learning about those things. I get to see how does this affect the local church? How does this actually affect people who are believers? And I think that is such a cool opportunity. And also realizing this is an opportunity not a lot of people get. Like how many people can take a whole year of their life and say, you know what, I'm going to focus specifically on the local church, and I'm going to focus on growing in holiness and understanding what my convictions are, and then seeing what it is like to actually work in full-time ministry. And, and I moved to Wellsboro to do that. And yeah, it's just been so cool to be able to experience that and actually get my hands dirty a little bit.
Yeah. We refer to it as serving in the trenches.
Yes. That's a good way of saying it. Yes.
It's good stuff, man.
And so obviously, and from that, what we're not saying is that you shouldn't go to seminary or seminary is always a bad thing.
What?
But maybe what we're trying to say is that the way seminary is set up right now isn't always the best for everybody, and maybe we need to think about that more. Maybe you could talk a little more about that, Josh, since you are the seminarian here.
Yeah, I pointed to my hat when you said that because clearly I don't think it's a bad thing because I'm going. So, I mean, the reality is, and I think this has been perhaps a critique of seminaries recently, is that they take men out of the church to train them up to lead the church instead of having men stay in the church and learn in the context. That was what
Josh,
I was
you're skipping to
with.
our quote. How dare you?
Don't go to the quote.
I didn't say anything. What? That I had a brother challenge me, so I was in the second half of my internship like you guys are, and these were the plans we had set. I had already applied for housing at Southern. Lydia and I were moving, like we were ready. And then I had a brother, and I'll never forget the way he worded it. He said, "Have you considered serving in the local context you feel called to and want to continue in, instead of in pursuing your degree instead of just going?" And that being said, you can do internships in seminary. You can participate and get involved in the local church you're in. We're not saying that's not it. But the opportunity and the involvement I already had here at Wellsboro Bible Church, what would it look like to serve the church on a part-time or full-time basis while pursuing your MDiv, part-time, full-time, continuing to serve in the body that you're already plugged into. Oftentimes for guys trained up, like we have a young man right now who is our high school intern. He's trying to consider, where should I go to Bible college? Where should I go if I do? So he's actually getting to participate, and he's been raised in this church. I think they've been here almost 10 years. So what would it look like for him even to stay and learn online while continuing to serve if the internal call to ministry he feels is confirmed, instead of leaving the context and the people he loves and the people he's covenanted with? You know what I mean? To leave that could be more less beneficial than staying and considering other options. So in the same way that I think high school seniors are being so encouraged, and at least in our generation, it was you go to college. Like that's just the thing you do. Instead of considering something like a vocation immediately after school, or a 2-year degree, or an associate degree, or tech school. There's a big push for that to get men and women into vocations immediately, because we need craftsmen and workers and things like that. In the same way, should we consider pushing less of go immediately to seminary and exploring a call to ministry locally? And obviously, it's going to vary per person, and that's where you need to pray and seek the wisdom of your elders and wisdom of men and women you love who are godly and can encourage you. And then eventually, you just need to make a decision. You need to go with it and trust the Lord in His sovereignty. So,
yeah, and that's even something that I had to process too, as I was debating what to do after this internship and applying to seminary and then being accepted, and then not long after I was accepted to unnamed seminary, I was offered a staff position at the church that I went to in college.
Who sent you here?
Who sent me here? Yeah, so I was a member.
They literally commissioned you.
Yeah, so I was a member at City Church in Williamsport, and I, as I was trying to figure out what to do with this year of my life, I was talking to my pastor over there, and he basically said, this is what I should be doing. He said, I wish we had something like this at City Church so that you could do it here, but because we don't, you should go there and do that. So they offered me a position back there, and it made me rethink, I really want to do seminary because I really want to understand the Word of God, which is something I've learned from this internship. Is the more I'm learning about ministry, the more that I'm learning about preaching or counseling or anything, the more I'm just man, I need to know the Word of God more. And so seminary seemed like the right step. So then after that, I was like, what am I going to do? Because I do definitely believe in being trained in the local church. And doing it. And the thing was, the unnamed seminary was willing to give me money to go there, but if I did it online, I wouldn't get the same amount of money. And so I ended up changing my mind, and I'll now be taking classes through Grimkey Seminary online, which is the Acts 29 training grounds. And so that gives me the opportunity to pursue seminary and still be working full-time in the local church. And so,
yeah, it certainly makes doctrine practical. It causes us not just to get filled heads, but then, okay, how does this make it practical in the ministry that the Lord's allowed me to now? And even the reality is seminary is like drinking from a fire hose, and it's giving you a taste of a lifelong of learning that you're going to do in the local church as a pastor. I have a brother who graduated from Gordon Conwell that has shared that with me. He's like, seminary is meant to give you a taste, and then it's just a lifetime of learning where you're reviewing and remembering. And so why not even continue that education and put teeth to it in the local church as well? So just something to consider, those who are listening.
Yeah, I've heard it said that an MDiv is a mile long and an inch thick. Like it gives you an introduction to a lot of things, and then after that, you can focus on one specific area. So
before we move any further, guys, just real quick, how might this experience change how you love the church after you're done here? What do you guys think?
I think one thing for me is a deep appreciation for what pastors and elders do, because I get to see some of those background things. Because, you know, growing up in the church, you're kind of like, oh, the pastor preaches a sermon on Sunday and then plays golf 6 days a week. Like, you don't realize all the things that go on behind the scenes.
We can't all be R.C. Sproul.
Yeah, we can't all be.
Just kidding.
I don't think we're
Yeah.
Just kidding.
And so, so definitely that, and realizing how much I need to pray for them and ways that I can practically serve the pastors and elders in that, and understanding the things that they're going through in that.
Yeah. What about you, Zeke?
Man, I just love the church now. Like when I think of when I started, like where I am now, it was a lot of, I didn't really know or understand. It was, I should like church, and I do like church, but it was a very surface level, or it was a much more surface level love of the church. And just as I think really after this experience, I've just completely fallen in love with the church. Yes, here in Wellsboro, but just anywhere. Being able to travel out and visit my younger brother in Colorado, visiting the church out there, and just see how invested he's been out in Boulder, Colorado, and just how that church has caused so much growth in him, and how he's wanting to pour back and continue to serve out in this wonderful church. There's just this deep, deep, genuine love for the people of God.
Sweet.
And covenant membership.
There we go.
Love it.
Yes.
Brought it back to Dever.
There we go. Cleaver Deaver.
So before we move on to stuff where pastors can use reviews, if you guys have you listeners have any questions, or you even have someone who's interested in a pastoral internship, you'd like to start an internship for yourself, please feel free to contact the church. You can email me at joshua@wellsborobible.com. Part of my role is recruiting and facilitating these guys while they're here, and I'd love to have a conversation with you. Once we get in contact through email, we can get a phone call maybe, or depending on where you are, I will drive to see you. So, or we could bring multiple drivers, passengers to come and speak with you. So we'd love to be a resource and an encouragement to you.
What if it's wet when you're driving? What if it's raining?
I'm still going to drive.
You're still going to drive? Okay, good, because I think I might have something for that. And stuff rural pastors can use review.
Well done, Zeke. Bravo. So you love to see
Beautiful
it.
transition after you missed the first one.
Yeah, I had to make up for that a little bit. So, thankfully, this particular item won't really help if you're driving, but it will help once you get out of the car immensely. So, a while ago, my wonderful mother came up with this beautiful invention. She didn't come up with it. She saw this beautiful invention that you can see if you're watching, but if not, you can listen.
Bro.
You can listen. What the sound that you're hearing is a wonderful backpack cover. So what you can do with this thing is it's got little clips on it. It's very stretchy. It's elastic. You put it over your backpack, and it stays nice and dry. It's a wonderful thing, especially when you have to get out of your car or if you have to walk somewhere and you're walking along and it's nice, and all of a sudden, boom, rain. It's a nice day, and then boom, rain just came from out of nowhere. And your backpack with all your wonderful, super important stuff, your laptop, your Bible, your copy of the Institutes of the Christian Religion, all those things could be...
What all Wellsboro Bible Church interns have in their...
Yes, it's what we do. Here we go. I'll pull it out. I'll show everyone.
He's got it.
Oh, I'm fishing.
I might have the same copy. It's just not on my backpack.
Yep.
It's a beefy boy, dude. How heavy is your backpack, Zeke?
Well, some fifth graders might be able to move it. It's kind of like I don't know, you keep it nice and weighty and it won't walk off.
Gotcha.
So there we go. But yeah, it's a very nice backpack cover that keeps everything nice and dry. I found it very useful, especially considering an umbrella. When you have a nice big umbrella, sometimes even the trail end off the back will get your backpack just a little bit wet. And so when you have both, it's keeps you nice and dry.
Good point.
Yeah, I think my hiking backpack that I got when I was in, or my camping backpack when I was in Hungary came with one of those actually, which was really nice.
Well,
I don't think I've ever used it. But
I was even just thinking pastors, especially in rural places, or our brothers from the city, if you're listening to this, if you're like hiking somewhere to like study or type of sermon or something like that, you want to take your backpack for the day, you can slap that bad boy on, and if you get caught in the rain, you're golden. Your sermon notes won't be ruined.
Yes, it's a beautiful thing.
Good review, Zeke.
Thank you. So now we will close this episode today with a quote that Josh was alluding to.
I wasn't actually alluding to this quote.
Oh, you weren't?
But I was, yeah.
It's pretty
I did
close,
read
man.
it, but I wasn't necessarily referring to it.
Yes. So this is a quote from one of the books that we are required to read. One of the it was the first book I read. I don't know if it was the first one you read or not.
It was first or second.
One
it was
of
one
the
of
first.
One of those.
But it's
two.
called Am I Called by Dave Harvey, and his quote is this: "We take men who are in the church out of the church in order to send them back into the church to do ministry for the church." Is anybody else confused?
It's a great quote. It's
tough.
a great quote.
Yes. Uh-oh.
Oh no. Disaster.
So, we are calling for an SOS. Zeke, what is the first S?
You can subscribe to the channel because we like algorithms and that helps us get famous.
Nope.
Yeah.
Gets the word out. Not get famous.
Yes.
I feel like I
we
failed
need
as TJ
Josh's
Stable.
garden is too small. It needs to be bigger.
No, I keep buying plants.
He needs-
My wife sent me an upside down face today.
Yes. Another way you can help with the algorithm is to offer a review.
Indeed. An honest 5-star review.
Yes.
Helps with the algorithm.
And Josh, what is the last thing?
You could share it. Word of mouth. Share on social media. Please share. Get the word out so we can be an encouragement, and we pray to be an encouragement. Or we could have other brother pastors and sisters in the church we can get connected with.
And we can find 2 more interns.
Truly.
Two more new interns.
Yep.
2 more interns.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Farewell.
Raise your Ebenezer.
That's his thing. I don't know if I wanted to
Yeah,
say
but you're the Joe, so I thought you were going to do it.
Oh, we're supposed to be saying something now. What are we supposed to say?
Josh, if they want to get a hold of us, where can they find us?
Yeah, Josh.
Well, Josh, I'm so glad you asked. You can email us at ruralpastorstalk@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, or you can tweet at us at ruralpastors.
Do people still use Twitter? I don't know.
I don't know. I think so.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.